So rotation is probably just around the corner, and we can all speculate that it's going to be with the release of Scarlet and Violet in February, as it would be a great time to have the rotation happen. I get a lot of questions all the time about what cards are leaving the format and how it will impact the game, what cards are leaving, and when is it going to be. Again, we don't know the release date yet, but the best guess we have right now is going to be in early February when Scarlet and Violet comes out. And in this video, I wanted to talk about all the cards we are going to be losing with the rotation, and I will probably do an update video, like a part 2, kind of talking about what decks are going to adapt and survive with rotation, what the metagame might look like. But I did want to talk about all the big cards we're losing, and there's a lot of big cards we are losing with rotation, as you can see. So let's start things off with the Pokemon, and hopefully this video ends up being very informative and helpful for you. And if it is, leave a like on the video. So let's start things off. Mad Party's rotating out. The whole Mad Party archetype is leaving a bit of an irrelevant loss. Mad Party was a fun deck to play. Never saw a lot of play. It gets gatekeep pretty hard by Sableye and Inteleon, which sucks, but overall, just another relevant little fun deck to be losing. Ditto V is a fun support Pokemon that we are also losing. Some people liked playing it within their decks with cards like Raikou V and Drapion V, so that option is no longer going to be available. Greedent is rotating too. A bit of a loss for control, as some control decks like play Greedent. It's also, I think, the optimal Greedent to play if you were to play Greedent VMAX. So yeah, Greedent leaving is an impact for that. Guru leaving is a big card. This is a great support Pokemon to have in the format, and Oranguru will actually be rotating out of Standard. Primate Wisdom is a great ability to have. Very good in Lugia, but also just good against Marnie. Well, Lugia and Marnie are both hit pretty hard with rotation. Guru is leaving, and it's just a nice one-up to have in a lot of decks, so it is unfortunate to see a good support Pokemon leaving. There isn't really a good replacement. There's Switching Cups, but yeah, no, Switching Cups, it ain't no Guru. Amazing Rayquaza is leaving, a card that really only got to see a lot of success when Mirage Gate came out, is leaving the format, and it sucks to see, as Mirage Gate Rayquaza is a really cool deck, and it's unfortunate to see a card that never saw play for the longest time actually get to see some success finally going to be going away. So it kind of sucks, but it is what it is. Amazing Rare's leaving altogether is a pretty big loss for like the Lost Zone engine decks, but that's not the biggest loss Lost Zone is going to get. But Rayquaza is something I did want to note as an attacker. Gourmandize Snorlax rotating is a big deal. It's a great support Pokemon to have in slower decks, great in control. Losing Snorlax is a big deal. Obviously, there isn't really a great replacement. Like, I guess there's like Jubilife City, which isn't really Gourmandize, though, is it? So it's an interesting loss to take. There is obviously the other Snorlax in the format. There's 2 of them, actually, but they're not going to be as good as Gourmandize ever will be. Cinccino's rotating. Now, Cinccino is a big loss because it's a great support Pokemon and good draw engine, but it is replaced by Kirlia, which Kirlia has Gardevoir and Gallade, and of course, there's also Liepard, which is not as good as Kirlia, but still there. So there's 2 different trade Pokemon in the format anyways, so Cinccino will eventually just kind of be phased out with Kirlia, which I kind of think is already starting to happen. So losing Cinccino, it's a big loss for support decks, but Kirlia just replaces it. Toge's VMAX rotating, it's an archetype that's leaving the format. Thought I would mention Togekiss. It's a fun, like, control, stally, annoying deck to play against, and it is going to be rotating. I think arguably out of all the Pokemon leaving, the biggest one is maybe Crobat V. One of the best support Pokemon we've seen in a long time with that ability Dark Asset. Crobat is gonna be gone. Now, Lumineon sticks around, and so does something like Bibarel, but in terms of just like a good raw draw support card like Crobat, it is gone. Sometimes Crobat helps you out of bad hands, or it helped you dig deeper in your deck for cards you want to see, but that option will no longer be a thing, as Crobat is going to be rotating out of Standard. It is a pretty big loss, I can't lie. It's going to actually slow the game down a little bit, I think, and that is honestly a good thing. The game was kind of fast when decks have access to something like Crobat, so it is nice to see it leave and slow the game down, but yeah, very significant loss. Arguably the biggest Pokemon that we are losing. Crobat VMAX rotating is a big deal. It's its own archetype with Weezing, and it's also a pretty decent partner to have in something like Lugia or Arceus. Arceus mainly liked Crobat for Mew, so it's just like another like relevant Mew counter that's leaving the format. I thought I'd mention it. Well, it may not be as good as like Drapion, still relevant to note that Crobat is leaving alongside Crobat V. Galarian Goon's another big loss. A great card to have in Lost Box to fix math, and also really good in Palkia for fixing math. So that like math fixing Goon leaving is pretty big. Also, yeah, stop playing Arceus too to fix math. So yeah, this is a pretty significant loss, I would say. It's a small loss, but it's like Oranguru, where it's a small enough loss where it's kind of a big deal. So yeah, Goon leaving is a big deal. Hoopa leaving and Sableye. I just wanted to note these like 2 like dark support Pokemon are leaving. Like Sableye was a cool little card to have, and obviously Hoopa was kind of cool too. In some decks like those like Inteleon Moltres decks. So just wanted to note that Hoopa is leaving, so that dark support attacker is gone alongside Sableye V. Just 2 things I wanted to note. Amazing Yveltal is leaving. Only really saw play at the end here with Lugia, but Lugia obviously loses more than just Yveltal, but just want to note, if there was to ever be another Special Energy reprint that helped Lugia with Yveltal, the option to use Yveltal is gone, as it will be rotating. And then, of course, Galarian Weezing leaving. Really annoying disruption card leaving the format. I don't know how relevant this will be, as a lot of the cards leaving were already kind of like, they were good. Like, Lugia kind of gets worse, which makes Weezing worse. Lost Zone, I guess, gets bodied by Weezing pretty hard, though. So, yeah, Weezing, pretty significant loss, I would say, for, like, some people that like to play those annoying decks. E-Turn's leaving. A whole archetype is rotating out. E-Turn and Crobat are just both leaving the format. So, just altogether, E-Turn is out of here. It'd be interesting, actually, if E-Turn stuck around and Crobat left. I'd actually be really curious to see how that would turn out. But, yeah, E-Turn leaving's big deal. It obviously dropped off in popularity as time went on, but still, like, it's sticking around. People do like to play it here and there, and, yeah, it's just altogether just going to be leaving. Malamar leaving. Another, like, relevant Arceus partner rotating out of the format. Could be relevant, as we are losing two big Dark VMAXs that Arceus could play, as Mew is definitely not going anywhere with rotation. We'll talk about that in part 2, and it's just another big Dark VMAX that Arceus might lose to help you against Mew. Stonjourner, of course, into the fighting Pokemon. Stonjourner kind of saw a bit of play when the Stonjourner stall deck took off, and then that it kind of stalled out recently thanks to like Tina and like Yveltal being really good against that deck. But yeah, just losing Stonjourner, it'll always hold a place in my heart. I will always cherish my Arceus Stonjourner deck that I created. That's just always going to be a personal favorite memory deck of mine in this like kind of era we were in. So yeah, just relevant loss there for those players. And then of course we are also went into the fire Pokemon. There's not really that many fighting Pokemon losing. Like, there's Donphan and Galarian Sirfetch'd, but those aren't, like, that relevant cards, in all honesty. Like, Donphan and Sirfetch'd, they're not going to be super missed. Sirfetch'd is replaced by Arcanine. Donphan was a cool card, but never really saw play because, like, Dunsparce exists. Fire Pokemon, there's a couple of them. The main one I want to listen was Leonzard, a very good budget-friendly beginner deck for standard format. That is now going to be out of the standard format. It's an interesting loss. Again, it was never like a super duper competitive deck. It is interesting to note, though, as again, it was a very good beginner budget deck for the standard format, and it will no longer be around. Charizard VMAX, just a cool little fire partner to play with Arceus V-Star. So just wanted to note that there. Obviously, Arceus Charizard was a cool deck, and that will no longer be an option. Sunny Scorch VMAX is also rotating. That's a deck that was good a while ago, but never really gone anywhere ever since, and I guess you could note it as a loss. I personally don't consider Sunny that big of a loss because it doesn't see much play anyways, but just wanted to put that out there. Eldegoss V rotating is interesting. Obviously, Eldegoss, pretty good card for control decks right now with double turbo energy. That will no longer be an option. I thought I would include Eldegoss in this list. Didn't really see much play for the ability. I'm only as like a good like support loop card, which is kind of funny, as like it's a good support Pokemon for most decks, but people just chose not to play it. So just another support card leaving, and it impacts control. Decidueye leaving. Obviously, Miltank is still around, and we are losing the Altaria. Just not really that good. I think Decidueye is better than Altaria, and then you got Miltank after that. But with EXs coming out, I don't know if these Wall V Pokemon like Miltank would even be good anyways, as EXs can just go right through Miltank anyways. Rillaboom leaving's kind of interesting. It saw a lot of play with like Aggro and stuff, but kind of over time it fell off. But some people do play like a Regidrago Rillaboom deck, and I don't know if there's ever like a reason to play a Rillaboom Grass Box style deck anymore. It's going to be gone, as Rillaboom is going to be out of the standard format. Orbeetle leaving. Very sad one. One of my favorite VMAXs is going to be leaving. I've loved Orbeetle. It's a very fun card to play, very satisfying card to use. It is going to be leaving the format. Never was like a super duper tier 1 competitive deck, but I did want to note Orbeetle as a significant VMAX loss. Next up are the Lightning Pokemon. There's actually quite a few decent ones. The big one I think is going to be something like Amazing Raikou. Just another partner that Lugia did have. Also, Lost Zone decks sometimes played Raikou, so that option is no longer there. Vigavolt V leaving's huge. It's arguably the best way to play Regieleki VMAX, and now Regieleki no longer has Vigavolt anymore to help it out, and that's a big loss. And Item Lock is always a great deck to kind of have in the format, and that Item Lock strategy is no longer going to exist, as Vigavolt just straight up leaving the format. So pretty big archetype loss to lose there. Zapdos, just wanted to note, like, Zapdos, Zekrom are pretty relevant, like, Lightning Pokemon that are leaving. There's also, forgot to mention here, there's also the Free Retreat Zeraora. I don't know why that wasn't in there, but yeah, the Free Retreat Zeraora here is another significant loss. Like, Zeraora, Zekrom, Zapdos, just nice little Lightning Pokemon to have, and like Flaffy, they're all gone. Zekrom did see play in Toronto Regionals. I would know, I got bodied by it on stream. But yeah, Zekrom leaving, it's a big deal. Paralysis is pretty good. And then obviously the Baby Zeraora was a nice little counter to like those lightning weak Pokemon. You slap a Choice Belt on it and it's doing, 140/280 damage to like a Palkia and one-shotting it. And some people liked having it in those like Lost Zone decks, and that's no longer going to be an option now, as it's going to be gone. Memory Capsule Jolteon is leaving too. Obviously, it's only good because of, like, the Shady Dealings engine, which Shady Dealings is already going to be rotating out of Standard, but I did want to note that Jolteon is leaving. If we ever see another good water support archetype come back, Jolteon is no longer an option to help counter that, so just want to note that. Metal Pokemon. Duraludon V is a pretty big loss. Arc Duraludon takes a big hit with this. The reason why this card is so good is because its ability gives this Duraludon like 250 HP, making it kind of hard to one-shot, which gives you a lot of protection when you're trying to put the Duraludon VMAX into play, and losing Duraludon V is a very big deal for Arc Duraludon, and it might honestly affect the way the deck is played, or might even affect its performance overall. Glare Meowth, just a fun little support Pokemon with a cool ability, cool in like Arcanine, and I guess with V-Unions, and that option is no longer going to be a thing. Yeah, Zacian and Zam are leaving too, believe it or not. Kind of a big loss. Obviously, Zacian saw so much play with ADP back in the day. Fell off over time. Saw some play with Dialga. Zamazenta, another interesting card, leaving. We are getting Zamazenta and Zacian V-Star, which is going to be funny as the best Pokemon to pair them with are going to be gone. We do have the Regal Stance Zamazenta in the format, and there's also the Psychic Zacian sticking around. But losing these two, it's a pretty big deal to lose both of these support Pokemon, and just kind of relevant. Zacian also saw playing control decks for the ability. Next up is Amazing Rare Zacian, just another amazing rare Pokemon that we're losing that Lost Box could play. Dusknoir is a very interesting loss to note. Dusknoir is a cool Pokemon that I'm surprised isn't seeing a lot of play right now, as it is a cool counter to stuff like Fusion Energy, Double Turbo, and Twin Energy, and a big one obviously being the Lugia decks in general. Losing Dusknoir could be big. Obviously, we are losing a ton of good special energy with rotation, so it may or may not matter, but I do think we are going to still get more good special energy cards as time goes on in the Scarlet and Violet era, and sometimes it would be nice to have Dusknoir around. Obviously replaced by Temple Sinnoh, but you could argue Dusknoir is better than Sinnoh, as Sinnoh is easy to counter. So, yeah, just wanted to put that out there. We're losing also, like, Dragapult VMAX, another, like big archetype kind of leaving. Obviously, Dragapult doesn't seem playing a very long time, but I did want to put Dragapult on this list regardless. And there's one other Pokemon I wanted to mention, actually, real quick. It's actually the Gengar. The Life Shaker Gengar. Only relevant because Sander made the Mewtwo V-Union Curlia Gengar deck. That cool archetype is not going to exist when rotation comes because we are losing Life Shaker Gengar. Just didn't want to put on there because it never, like, was that good anyways. It's just only good because Sander made it good. But, yeah, just thought I would honorable mention, I guess. Water Pokemon. Yeah, there are some biggies losing, aren't we? Yeah, we're losing Shady Dealings. A lot of people are going to be really happy to see Shady Dealings leaving the format. I'm not so sure that it's bad. I never found Shady Dealings to be bad for the game, in all honesty. It was always like a cool archetype because a lot of the time the support engines were literally just like your like Bibarel Octillery, or you would just play a big basic 2-prizer that drew you cards like Crobat, Dedenne, or Shaman. It was refreshing to have something different in the format. But a lot of people hated the Inteleon engine, and I can understand why. Quick Shooting sticks around, so does Keep Calling, but we are losing Drizzle and Inteleon. And, I mean, obviously these cards have fallen off recently as, like, time went on, but it is still a big loss nonetheless, as I'm sure people would still play Shade Dealings. Like, obviously, Palkia losing Shade Dealings is big. Arc Intel is no longer going to be an archetype, and that's refreshing to see. I hated that deck. So, yeah, Shade Dealings, very big loss. Arguably, the second biggest loss in the Pokemon category, probably behind Crobat V, is the Shade Dealing engine, and that losing that is going to be a very big deal, and it was kind of cool to see a unique engine like this exist, so, I don't know, I'm sad to see it go. Personally, I liked it, but I know a lot of people are going to be very happy to see Shady Dealings leave. Water Pokemon also lose a pretty big support with Frostmoth. Single prize water Pokemon take a hit here. Obviously, Melanie still exists, but Melanie doesn't attach to basic water Pokemon or single prizers. So, like, fun decks like Wailord just don't have Frostmoth anymore. I hate to see it go. I would love if Frostmoth would get reprinted, in my opinion. I wanted to get reprinted. Don't know if it will, but yeah, big loss to have is Frostmoth. That's about it for the Pokemon. There might be a few others that I did miss, but these are all like the big relevant ones that I think are going to make the biggest impact with them leaving the format. I think the biggest ones, again, it's going to be Shady Dealings, Crobat, Goon, Guru, Gormandize. Those are all pretty big losses to have in terms of Pokemon that are leaving. Vigavolt leaving, just archetypes leaving like Vigavolt, Eternatus, Malamar, the Zacian, Dragapult. Pretty interesting. On to the trainers. There's a lot of big ones here. First up is Capacious Bucket. Big loss for water decks. Bucket Irida is a good combo. Palkia no longer has Bucket Irida anymore. That might be a big deal going forward. Unless I think Energy Switch is sticking around, or is Energy Search sticking around? I actually can't remember if it is. I think it is. Let me see here. Energy Search. Is Energy Search sticking around? Oh, maybe it's not. I guess Energy Search is rotating too. All right, let me include that real quick. Energy Search rotating. Energy Search and Bucket rotating. I thought Energy Search sticking around when I was making this, but it's not. But yeah, Energy Search leaving and Bucket, very relevant losses for, I guess Irida would like to play either one of these. Bucket is a good nerf for water decks. I think Bucket was a very good card for water decks. Kind of OP, to be honest. It's what made Palkia and Greninja such a deadly combo. Big card leaving is Evil Wind Sense. Very relevant search card. It is sad to see it go, as it was nice to have a card be that good for evolution decks. It is leaving. Sucks to see it go. It is what it is. There is Capturing Aroma, but it's just never going to be as good as Evolution Incense, let's be real here. Hyper Potion is leaving. Another pretty big loss. Hyper Potion, obviously great for Duraludon decks. Any deck that can use like Hyper Potion heal, definitely going to be a big loss. I think it's big in Arctura, and even Gudra is another deck that is losing Hyper Potion. So relevant losses for those decks where the tank and heal might not be as good. Metal Saucer is a big loss for metal decks. Mainly Dialga V-Star is taking a huge hit here. Metal decks do still have Magnezone and the new Kling Klang, but let's be real, they're stage 2s. And Mew Celebration sticks around, meaning that Saucer still would have been good if it stuck around, but yeah, losing Saucer, Dialga V-Star takes a big hit there, or any good metal Pokemon that come out in the future. Rod is rotating. I really want them to reprint like a Rod or like a Pokemon Recovery card as good as Rod, because it sucks to see this go. Rescue Carrier and Clara are like the only 2 cards that like exist. I guess Yell's Cheer too. Forgot about that card, but I don't know. I just really want there to be like Rod in the format. I think the format is always good when you have a card like Rod existing. So hopefully they reprint Rod or something like that down the road, like Super Rod or Stretcher or something. So sucks to see Rod go. Pad rotating. Big loss for decks that use Silene and stuff. It's an interesting loss. Some decks do like having it, so those decks no longer have the option to adapt with Pelpad. Pokegear leaving. Pretty big for, like, those single quad decks. Now, Gear might be reprinted. I'm honestly not even sure. It might end up getting reprinted, or it might already be reprinted. Another card that I'm not so sure of is actually Pokemon Catcher. This is another card that might end up getting reprinted, but yeah, Pokemon Catcher is rotating. It's a bit of a loss to, like, something like Mew. But yeah, Catcher leaving. Pretty relevant loss, I would say, for something like Mew. Nothing too crazy, though. Not that many decks really played it, but just wanted to put that out there. It might get reprinted, though, or it might already be reprinted. I'm not sure on that. Next up is Quick Ball. This one is definitely a huge loss. Arguably, I think out of any card rotating, Quick Ball might be the biggest because it's such a good card. One of the best Pokemon Search cards ever printed is rotating. Ultra Ball, Battle VIP, Level Ball all stick around, and we might even see something like Nest Ball or Pokecom get reprinted with Scarlet and Violet. Ultra Ball got reprinted in Scarlet and Violet. Who knows what could happen? I don't think Quick Ball will get reprinted. This was just a very good card. But yeah, one of the biggest losses. Every deck is going to adapt pretty heavily by Quick Ball rotating. So definitely a very big loss to have is Quick Ball, without a doubt. Very, very big loss. Rotom Phone rotating. Very big loss for Mew. Mew losing Phone is kind of a big deal. Just a nice card Mew had, and Mew loses Phone. Mew will still be good, but no longer has Phone. Now, another big loss, arguably the second biggest loss, is Scoop Up Net. Now, this card is really good in so many archetypes. Obviously, with like Goon and Inteleon rotating, like maybe it wasn't as relevant. However, it is relevant, and you know why? Because Lost Zone is losing this. Comfey losing Net is huge, like actually massive. It is one of the biggest losses for Lost Zone. It is the biggest loss, I would say, for Lost Zone. Like, Scoop Net rotating is ginormous for Lost Zone. And also, it would have worked with EX Pokemon, so it is kind of cool to see us leave, as EXs would be kind of insane with Scoop Up Net. We'll have to see what happens in Expanded. But, yeah, Scoop Up Net rotating, very big loss. Lost Zone, it has to adapt pretty heavily with the loss of Net, whether they'll play more Comfey switching out, like Switch and Rope and Switch card, or they'll just play, like, Bayonet. Yeah, Net is a big loss for Lost Zone. It's going to slow Lost Zone down quite a bit. In fact, I think Scoop Net is good for the format, as it's going to slow down the format even more, which I think we kind of need it. Like Crobat and Net, and even Quick Ball to a degree rotating, slow the format down quite a bit, and I'm glad to see that. Switch at the moment is rotating. This is a card that I'm fairly certain is getting reprinted. There's also apparently rumors that it is reprinted, so while it is leaving right now, I don't think Switch is going to be gone forever. I think that it is going to be reprinted. I have no doubt in my mind this card will come back eventually. Switch card and Rope do exist, though. Yell Towel, just a little fun heal card rotating out of the format. Tool Scrapper rotating. Relevant, but not too relevant, as Lost Vacuum is just a better card than Scrapper, and I don't think Scrapper would have seen play if it stuck around anyway. So, while Scrapper is leaving, not a big deal. Vacuum is just a better card. Yellhorn leaving is big for Control and Mill decks. I just want to note that. It's a very interesting card to have in the format that will be rotating, so want to put that out there. Galarmine is another interesting loss for Mill and Control decks. Well, the Snorlax still exists, so we'll see if Block Snorlax kind of replaces this, but also if you're a fan of Leafeon VMAX, your Leafeon VMAX deck just got a lot worse. Gloomwood Tango rotating, kind of relevant for like Radiant Jirachi. I really do hope we see something like Gloomwood come back, or Fliptini. I always like having those reflip style support cards in the format. It just makes a lot of like fun decks work. I would love to see Gloomwood come back in some way, shape, or form in the future, or Fliptini or something. Training Court is rotating. Pretty interesting loss. It's sad to see it go. It's one of the best staple stadiums right now. Path obviously exists, and there are other stadiums that might replace it, but I'm sad to see it go. One of the best stadiums, also really good, of course, with something like Radiant Greninja. Training Court kind of like replaced Viridian Forest, and then what's going to replace Training Court now? So far, there isn't really anything out there that replaces it. I'm sad to see Court go. I hope we see Court come back in the future, or some kind of like Viridian Court style card again, because I just think they're just really cool and good to have and healthy in the game. Is something like Path. Path is just a disgustingly good card, and it sucks to see a very good counter stadium to that rotate out of the format. Just not cool. Turfield's leaving, not really relevant, but just want to put that out there. If there's any good grass decks that could abuse Turffield, no longer will be an option as it is rotating out of the format. Some supporters were losing. I think the big one, obviously, Birdkeeper is a pretty big supporter to lose here. Just a nice little supporter to have around in the format. It is gone. Leon's leaving, too. Another supporter card that some decks like to play, as it helped them hit those really relevant high numbers to take 1-hit KOs. And, of course, the big supporter is Marnie. I hate this card a lot. I'm glad to see Marnie go, but Marnie's a very good draw supporter, and it is finally going to be rotating out, though it might end up getting replaced anyways by Judge, which, well, it might not be as good as Marnie. And with Oranguru rotating, the option to play Judge is no longer, like, as good, but Marnie leaving is a big deal. There are a lot of other supporters in the format. Cloris's Experiment is slowly starting to replace Marnie. There's also Bruno, Cynthia, Karina, Melanie exists. I don't know. There's other supporters that do exist, obviously. Research is sticking around. Research even got reprinted in Scarlet and Violet, so Discard Draw 7 is going to be around for a very long time, folks. But Marnie, she's out of here. Yeah, I like to see it go. Big loss. So Hand Disruption is nice to have in the format. Roxanne still exists, too. On to the tools. Air Balloon leaving. Another sad card to lose. Floatstone is a broken card. Air Balloon is Floatstone but nerfed, and I do hope we do see some kind of iteration of Floatstone or / Air Balloon come back in some way, shape, or form, as I do like having this card in the format, and I am sad to see Air Balloon go. We'll have to see how people adapt, because obviously there are like their switch rope and like switch card and stuff. Big Charm leaving is a big deal. A lot of decks like to play Big Charm. Very good math fixer. Helps you out quite a bit. Stuff like Palkia like to play it. Arceus and Teleon like to play it. But yeah, no longer give me an option. And that could be a big deal, especially in something like Duraludon or Goodra. Do take a bit of a loss by losing Big Charm. Also losing Big Parasol is another loss that kind of sucks. Espeon VMAX does exist, and that seems to be like the better card at the moment, but Big Parasol leaving is a big deal, as stuff like Giratina, V-Star, and Sableye do like to eat you up. So yeah, Big Parasol could be a big loss going forward. A lot of decks may or may not like to see Big Parasol go, because it's a good counter to stuff like Sableye, so it is sad to see it go. Cape is leaving, just a relevant card for those like V decks. Vigavolt, V rotating, doesn't really matter, but you get my point. Like, Cape still stopped playing those style decks anyways, and that option will no longer be there to play Cape. Curse Shovel leaving. If you're a fan of Durant Mill, yeah, you're losing your Curse Shovel. If you're a fan of any mill deck, or any new cool mill card comes out, it no longer can play Curse Shovel, so just kind of good to note. Memory Capsule's leaving. A bit of a loss here. Obviously, Capsule is pretty cool in Jolteon, which is leaving, but it's another interesting tool card that got to see play with Gyarados. Never really got to see full potential, I would say. So you never know. Maybe something comes out that would have loved Memory Capsule, but no longer has that option anymore. On to the energy. A lot of special energy rotating. Mainly Aurora is a huge loss for Reggie's. Reggie is going to be a lot worse with Aurora, which I hate to see. But yeah, Reggie's going to be a lot worse now that Aurora's rotating. But also it's going to make Lugia a lot worse, as there's no longer a rainbow energy card for Lugia anymore to abuse. Speaking of Lugia for abusing, I guess it's good to note all the other special energies. Heat, Fire, Hiding Dark, Speed Lightning are all big losses for Lugia, as they no longer have the option to play those extra special energies for extra types. They're also good for those like Dark deck. Like if Dark deck losing Hiding Dark kind of sucks. Fire, I never really saw playing Fire decks, but you get my point. Like Heat Energy, you never know. Horror Psychic, yeah, there's some cool Psychic Pokemon that maybe could have played it. Speed Lightning, big loss for Reggie's, and also something like Jolteon VMAX, if you ever wanted to play that, or any like Lightning deck for that matter, no longer has Speed Lightning. Like if Raikou Regieleki was to become a deck, it doesn't have Speed Lightning anymore for the extra draw, which is a big deal. Another big loss, Powerful Energy. Very big card. Very, very good card with Lugia. One of the things that made Lugia so good is it had the ability to just put 3 Powerfuls on and like just one-shot anything in the active spot, basically. And Lugia no longer has the option to play Powerful Energy, which means it no longer has the ability to just put a billion energy on the active and just blow the opponent's active Pokemon up. So relevant loss for sure. Arceus also liked to play Powerful, and so did Blissey. So big losses to all those decks. And then, of course, we are losing Wash Energy. Relevant loss for water decks. Kyurem, especially losing Wash, is a big deal, as Giratina against Kyurem might be more relevant now, as they can just start Requiem you without having the Wash on, and neither is Big Parasol sticking around. But there are some other special energies that are very sad to see rotate that I'm saving here for last. Capture Energy is a huge one. One of the most, I would honestly say, one of the best and most well-designed cards we've seen in a while. Really brings me back to something like Call Energy from back in the Diamond and Pearl era. It is now going to be out of the standard format. I hate to see Capture go. We'll see if they reprint a similar style Capture Energy card in the future, but Capture Energy is a loss that a lot of decks are going to feel, because a lot of decks like to have the option to play Capture, as it's a great card, and losing both Quick Ball and Capture Energy, it's a pretty big loss to have for sure for those searching cards. Then finally is Twin Energy. Relevant card for single prize decks. Now they just have the option to only play double turbo as opposed to double turbo twin. We'll see if something like Zorobox, how it can adapt with the loss of Twin Energy. It is a big loss for those style of decks. And no longer having double turbo twin is going to hurt those decks quite a bit, but we'll see if they can adapt with just double turbo energy in the format. And that is about it for rotation. Those are all the big cards rotating out of the format. I may have missed a couple cards here or there. Let me know in the comments if I did miss any cards, but those are all the biggest cards leaving, and I think it is going to be a very interesting format. The format in total, in my opinion, is going to get slowed down quite a bit, and that is a good thing. Net, Crobat leaving, it's going to slow down the game a lot, and I think that's really good because we kind of need the game to be slowed down. Like, Lugia can no longer have those explosive turns as we're losing Quick Ball, Evolution Incense, and all of the special energy that it has to abuse. Palkia loses Shady Dealing, so has to rely on probably like Bibarel now. Crobat leaving is good for, extra draw. And then, of course, something like Scoopnet is good as Lost Zone can no longer have, like, turn 2 Mirage Gate, Sableye combos out of nowhere. And that is also good to have, as this format needed to be slowed down. And I'm glad rotation is going to help slow the format down a little bit. And it is going to be good to see. And it is refreshing to have a rotation, as rotation was supposed to happen beginning of September this year, but no longer was a thing. And then now we're going to have to wait probably most likely until Scarlet and Violet in February, most likely, is when we're going to see it. Hopefully this video was informative to you. If it was, leave a like in the video. If you haven't subbed to the second channel yet, click that subscribe button down below. I'll catch you on another video, and have a good rest of your day. And there will be a part 2 to this where we will talk about relevant decks and what will be different after rotation and what decks might adapt and all that good stuff. So see you then.